All right, Youest you community, family, beautiful souls out there. We're gonna just start with an intention. Usually I don't record this, but I am on like such a high with Gabriela here, who you're going to get to meet in a minute, that I figured let's bring in the intention because I know it's going to be magical. All right, so Gabriela, we're just going to take a moment and I'm going to invite us. Let's just anchor in, put our hands to our heart, just connecting. And all right, my dear, do you want to start? Because I'm hearing you start the intention with your beautiful accent, and then I'll follow. How does that feel?
Okay, yeah. So just immediately as I put my hands to my heart, I feel something hovering above me. So I just want to first of all invite any guides who are lurking and hoping for an invitation to come and join us today. I want to invite them in and really give them permission to intervene in any way they see fit. So intervene in any answers I give or any questions you ask. And now let's just really tune in to our intention for today's conversation. What do we feel? What do we see? What do we hear?
Beautiful.
And something's popped in for me, Julie. Has something popped in for you yet?
I'll go after you. Yes,
Okay,
but I want to
yeah.
hear you first, and then I'll go.
Yeah, so what I see in my mind's eye is I just see one person. I see one person and they are, I can sense that sort of lost alone feeling. So my intention is to be here for that person and to articulate something from my own experience that's going to give them a sense of no longer being alone. That's what's
Mm.
come in for me.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. And I'm just getting this overall feeling of, God, it's like I'm seeing, this is interesting. The vision I'm getting is all of us, like literally all of us, anyone that tunes in at any time, like joining hand in hand around the globe, like from wherever you are around the globe, and just getting that the energy. Oh, I'm seeing like if you squeeze my hand, I squeeze your hand, almost like a heartbeat, that all of our hearts are connected. And may this conversation really, really, really go to that deepest level of heart and heart connection. And remembering, as you said, the one person. And I thought, oh, we all are of that one field, that one energy, and just remembering our own oneness, and that this conversation elevate and really inspire and kind of go straight to the heart for anyone and everyone listening. So that is my intention. That is what I'm seeing. Yeah.
Yum.
Yum. Well, we're going to come back to the moment. And I've just got to say, what a fun way. What a beautiful way. So, to just start this conversation, normally I do this and I don't record it. And I thought, no, we're going deep in this. So, friends, we're going deep in this conversation. And, I talked to Gabriela beforehand and said, what are we going to focus on? Anything to you want to say, don't want to say? And she's like, open book, right? Open field, one field. And so, I just want to thank everybody for being here, open hearted, for being here, listening with your heart, listening with an open mind. And I'm going to share with you right now our beautiful guest today. I'm so excited. I've been so looking forward to this conversation. Hopefully, you're going to feel like you are here hanging with us. No matter where you are, the goal is to have you feel like you're right next to us sipping tea. And even though Gabriella and I are in two different continents, countries, I always feel like I'm right next to you. And I think it's also the curly hair. So let me introduce our beautiful guest. Gabriela Blandy is a fully qualified life coach and NLP practitioner. She is a personal and professional development expert with over 15 years experience of working with writers, creatives, and entrepreneurs. She is also trained in the Shamanic Medicine Wheel with the spirit of the Inca. So beautiful. Gabriela has been awarded the Royal Society of Literature VS Pritchett Prize and has a master's in creative writing with distinction. Her writing has been published in various books and journals, including the Mechanics Institute Review and the London Magazine. She has been published alongside Sarah Waters and Daphne du Maurier in Virago's collection of ghostly tales, Something Was There. Gabriela has hosted hundreds of literary events, both in London, at City University, and the bar at RADA, and at the John Osborne Arvon Center, and has spoken on the creative writing master's programs at Oxford University, UEA, Warwick, Birkbeck, and Guildford. And I will say it has been such an honor and pleasure. Gabriela and I have been working together over the last year, and I have literally seen this just incredible expansion. And I'm so excited to talk about what has been happening for you and what you are so excited about and anything and everything in between. Gabriela, I am so happy you're here today. It's such a joy to connect. And if anyone's watching this on YouTube, we are not sisters, but we look like we could be. I'm just putting that out there. Maybe in past lives we are, because the minute I met you, I'm like, yep, girl is of the same cloth.
For sure. Yeah, for sure, Julie. And actually the sofa behind me, I remember lying on that sofa just after we'd made the agreement to work together. And I remember lying on that sofa and actually having my hands on my heart and speaking to my soul, saying, you know, I've got you. This work is for you now. Like, up until that point, it had been all about hustling and like, you know, going for it. And it was just so wonderful to make that connection with you and to then have that trust that I was going to start speaking to my soul. And I had tears coming down my face, and I could literally feel my soul just being like, yay, she's finally going to listen to me.
Wow.
So that was really where I was at the beginning. I hadn't been listening to what was within. I'd been hearing my soul, but I had been not trusting what I'd been hearing. I'd been very confused about what that voice was and very afraid to follow it.
Let's dive into that. And you said some words that I think I'd love to like really look at, because I know not everyone listening is an entrepreneur. Many are thinking about entrepreneurial endeavors or have that spirit of like, I want to create a life that I love and design a life that I love that really feeds my soul, my heart. And often this is what I've seen. I've seen it for me. I know you have mentioned this and you just said it. It's easy to get trapped in this hustle mentality, in this formulaic, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and I have to do it, you know, early hours, late hours. I've got to push myself. And I want to unpack that a little bit, because I know that was something for you. You were actually, when we started working together, you already were successful. You were in that hustle mode, but share a little bit about what kind of had you think, you know, something needs to change. Would love to hear your experience a little bit there.
Yeah. I would say there were a few factors. One of them was I noticed how many comparisons I was making. And it was something that perhaps I had done at school, but I felt that a lot of the personal work that I'd done since then had dissolved that habit. But I noticed it creeping back in. Excuse me, I just need to cough. So I noticed that habit creeping back in, and I was looking at other coaches and how they were running their business. And I had this uncomfortable sense of competition. And I knew that wasn't going to lead to any good. So that was the first thing, that comparison habit had crept in. The second thing, like really on a simple level, I was working weekends. I wasn't having time off. And I kept saying to myself, oh, that's okay. I'll work weekends, but I'll get on top of everything and I'll get everything done. I'll get everything sorted. And then the business is going to be nice and easy to run. But again, because I'm a life coach and I know how the brain works, I was like, you don't ever get to that place. There's this little voice. It's so alluring to say, look, work really hard and then you can rest. But I knew that unless I felt restful right now, I would never feel restful. And I knew that I wasn't able to do that on my own. I needed help for somebody to do energy work or to do deep listening that was going to take that agitation away so that I could trust that I could stop. Because I knew that it wasn't just that I had a lot of work to do. I'd just gotten into the place where I was afraid to stop working because the business was going well and I was really afraid to lose that momentum.
This, I think, is so, so important. And I know you're not the only one. There's others listening. I have felt this. And I think it's kind of that, the fear, right? Fear that what you were doing that was working, in quotes, money, success, helping people, growth, as you said, the momentum, you didn't want that to stop. And so that fear, I mean, I know that voice. It's like, oh, just work through the weekend. It's fine. So tell us a little, because I'm like, oh, sister, I am so tracking with you right now. What was there? Was there a low point or a moment or something that had you realize, okay, this is not working, or this is not me, or this is not how I want it to go? What helped you to start to see something is not sitting right here?
I kept hearing a voice in my head, and it was saying to me, you know where this path leads. You know where the path of hustle leads. You know where working long weekends leads. So even though I was pretending or trying to convince myself that it would lead to a place of more time off, this voice was like, you know where this is going to lead. It's going to lead to burnout. It's going to lead to totally losing your passion for what you're doing. And that was already beginning to happen. Like this phrase, entrepreneurial burnout, where you start with a real passion for what you're doing, and then suddenly you start to think, oh, maybe this isn't what I want to do. And I've had that thought at other times in my life, and it has set me on perhaps a more desired trajectory. But when I started to have that thought in this context, I was like, wait a second, I love my work. So I knew that if I'd fallen out of love with it, that meant that there was something wrong with me and what I was doing, rather than something that was wrong with the work. So I think it was those two things that really woke me up to actually say, Julie, you can't do this on your own. You know, that famous phrase, which is, if your thinking got you into this problem, it's not going to get you out of it. And I'm a huge fan of having a coach or a mentor by my side. So I knew it was time to start working with somebody. But it was like, oh, if I know where this path leads and yet I can't get off it on my own, I need help. And if I'm losing passion for something that has been my passion for at least half of my life, then I need help.
I love the humility, the openness, and your awareness to really listen and trust that. And I'm just thinking, you're such a fantastic, powerful coach yourself. I'm thinking for those that are coaches or therapists or counselors or healers, it takes something, I think, to say, you know what, I need support to be able to do that kind of work. And so I just want to point that out and reflect that to you, because I remember when we first met, and I thought what I loved was this deep awareness and your willingness, and I don't want to give it all away, but I remember you talked about really wanting to do more of that work, going into your intuition and your higher guidance. And I was like, damn, this woman is so brave and courageous, because that hustle mentality, it's very commonplace. I think that there's this belief that you have to be doing that. I personally have seen, for me, it's led to physical issues, to exhaustion. And I think it takes courage and bravery. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is like, yes, please, may please, please, please get to connect with you and work with you, because you were so open and so willing to go into your own depths of inner guidance and intuition. And I think what you said is so important. You heard that voice and you didn't negate it. It said, you know where this will lead. And, that loss of passion. I mean, I remember in the beginning talking a little bit, still loving what you did, but it started to dwindle, to kind of diminish. And yeah, it's really powerful. So you started to listen, you started to hear that. And I think this is important because for those that are hearing that voice, that maybe you're working on weekends, or someone listening who is working way over 40 hours or way like morning, night, weekends, not taking time for yourself or listening or pausing. Yeah. So cause what's happened over this year, I mean, is just, I don't want to like give it all away yet, but
spoiler alert.
I don't want to. I'm like, it has been miraculous and just magical watching you. Yeah. So would you maybe to just share, because I know it's been a process, kind of making, so I'm hearing like you made this decision. I'm going to honor my inner guidance. I know you said you were on the couch. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the beautiful couch, hand on your heart, like really, as you said, just listening to your soul to stop the hustle. So let's talk about like, what did that look like and feel like you kind of turned the ship around, Gabriela.
Yeah. Well, actually, if we go back to that moment on the sofa, there was another component, which is the financial investment. And that was quite specific for me, like to actually be like, I just bought something for my soul. And I think that really clarified something in my mind that was, and if I don't take action from our discussions, my soul is going to be watching, saying, wait, you bought this for me. And if you're not going to take action, hang on, I'm confused. So it really shifted something in me, the difference between, I don't know, like it's great to go out and buy a new outfit, but there has to be more than that, It can't just be the purchase that brings the rush of pleasure. So I think right from that moment on the sofa, I really made, and I'm tearing up now, like I really made that promise to, if my soul would start speaking to me, I would listen. And then it did start speaking to me, as you know, and I was like, oh boy, like I've really opened a can of worms here. And it came very early on in our sessions, but what started to emerge, my soul was asking for that space. It was asking for nature. And it was asking for me to find a different way to do my business. And I think that was a really interesting one for me to tap into, because up until that point, I had thought, did slowing down mean in some way stopping what I was doing? But what was really great was my soul was saying, no, you are in absolutely the right place. Like, this is the work that you were born to do. You are born to help writers or people with that creative urge. You're here to guide them to allow whatever creation they want to impart, bring out into the world. You're here to make that happen. So I knew that I was in the right place. And I just got this very exciting sense that something other than, I don't know, a marketing program was going to teach me how to do business. I was like, oh, wow, there's like a divine wisdom that's waiting for our attention to say, hey, if you listen to me, you're going to be doing business so much better. And so I knew that what had to happen was that I had to create more space in my life. I had to start doing less. And that was so scary, Julie. One of the things I did was I did take on an assistant. So that was another wake up. It was around probably about halfway through when we were working together. My brother had been helping me and I had to make a big decision to let him go and actually take on an assistant who was really aligned with what I was doing. And so there was a period of time where I did feel like I was doing even more because I'd taken on this assistant and I wanted to give her the time to really show her what the values of the company are and how we really serve people. And then what's been really interesting is as I've started to have more time in my diary, I still found it really, really difficult to take that time. And that's when it really woke me up to that voice that says there's too much to do. It's not true, because it was there even when there was and even when there wasn't. And I still experience it. Like I've been taking long weekends, like long weekends off have become a regular feature of my life. And the first few hours of that long weekend, like I drop devices, I close my laptop, but the first few hours, I feel this anxiety of like something's missing. And it takes me a few hours to like really come into that place of trust, to trust that this is the way to do business, and to trust that everything is taken care of, and that if I come back to work on Monday and there's an angry email, it's okay, I will deal with it. But the most important thing is to have that long weekend for me. So yeah, it was very challenging to stop even, and I just had to have these mantras in my mind that said, very kind, like, dearest one, most loved one, you've done all that you need to do this week. Like, I had to just keep repeating things like that in my mind, and really trusting that there was something about nature that was really calling me, and that I had to start taking more time off to go and explore what that was.
Oh my gosh. All right. I want to go back for a minute. You're saying, I'm like got tears in my eyes when you started talking before. And it's actually, this is what happens. I'm listening to you. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just really heard what I think one of the main messages is that I think we're really talking about here. And you said that making that decision, just to go back for a minute, to purchase this, to work together, was actually, you said, I just bought something for my soul. And what I'm hearing in all this, and this is really, to me, this is all of our next level, is having that kind of reverence, sacred awe for our higher self, for your soul, courage, faith, trust. And this is, as I'm hearing you, oh my gosh, and I'm remembering, because I remember when it was really hard for you to take that time off. And I just took myself back to that moment. I'm like, oh, I remember this. We talked about it. It was really, you wrote about it. You're such a beautiful writer. And you were like, wow, I feel like your nervous system was healing and changing and shifting. But Gabriela, what I think at the bottom of this is that you chose to say yes to your soul, which some might call higher self. Youest you, your divine, you're this greater part of you. And you let that navigate you. That's what's been navigating. And so you heard it say more nature, which of course we'll get into and how that showed up. But to take us through this beautiful golden thread, it hit me as you said it, like, I bought something for my soul. And how many of you, and I'm listening for myself too, how many of us are really taking that action or making decisions from that part of us, not the, like, I have to, I should, or the fear, but really from this greater love, from that, I'm going to honor my soul. So I just wanted to say that, because I had like chills, I had tears in my eyes, and I hadn't heard you say it that way. And it's really powerful.
And actually, just to add one more thing, Julie, because I've made commitments before, I've signed up for things before, like I'm thinking about your listeners, and they do want to make that commitment to really tune into their true selves and be their Youest you. I think, and sometimes it can be like, oh, well, I'm listening to Gabriela and maybe she just finds it easy, like she commits to stuff and she just follows through, but that wasn't always the case. But I think what was really significant here is I had this feeling in my body of absolute certainty that if I continued to do things the way that I was doing, I would literally miss my life. It's like there was this life that was waiting for me, and I could sense it, but I couldn't step into it yet, but I could sense that there was this other life waiting for me. And I could also feel in my body that if I continued with all of the old habits and thought patterns and routines, I wouldn't get to have it. And that kind of, again, it was like, where this path leads. It was like, oh my God, I could live my whole life just sort of following these automatic ways of doing and being, and I will miss something that is really trying to get my attention.
Beautiful. I love that you added that. It's to me, and also what I'm remembering and just following kind of with you is taking yourself out of that automatic thinking or the, automatic way of being, and to, as you said, and deciding that there's a deeper part of me that knows, that feels and knows there's an expression of me. There's a greater expression here that is like asking, please listen, please. I want to feel and experience and be that. And you really, and I know, just from my own experience, what we went through, and I know from others that have written in, I think this is something many of us get to these points. The question is, are you going to listen? Are you going to do something about it? Are you going to, and as you said, it wasn't always easy to stay committed. I remember some of the emails and conversations about really like it felt really hard. Maybe you can even share what that was like to kind of unwind what you were doing. Cause in a way you were really shifting your entire way of doing life and business.
Yeah. I think the first thing is that I would notice myself rushing around and doing 3 things at once. Like I'd be spreading something on a piece of toast, checking my emails, looking at my calendar. And I was watching myself do all this stuff, knowing that I didn't need to behave in that way anymore. And it was really scary, Julie. I was like, oh my God, look at me. And it was so tempting to draw this conclusion of, I'm not going to be able to get out of this. And also weirdly, there was this real familiarity with that place of, having plates spinning and doing all of these things. It was like the feeling of, I can't not do this. So there was that. And also at times, just a deep visceral terror. That's the best way that I can describe it. So sometimes it really felt like the sort of terror that you feel, not when you're standing at the edge of a cliff, but the moment that you realize you're falling, and it's just the sort of scream that you might emit when you feel that fall occurring. And you sense an imminent death. And I know that was me experiencing my ego, who was basically about to experience an imminent death, but it felt like my death. And so it was so hard to trust that wasn't real, that I could stop buttering toast and checking email and looking at my calendar all at once, that I could do it. And that this terror that I felt about changing the way that I was living my life wasn't real. But I had to, and again, people who know me find it hard to believe, because they see someone who's running a business, they see someone who's happy, who's confident. So they find it hard to believe that I can be so anxious. But, literally it would be some days it would be almost like every 10 minutes I'd have to talk myself down. But I was so committed to doing that. So it would be like, I'm going to grab my journal and I'm going to do 5 minutes of journaling. I'm going to pull a tarot card. I'm going to put some music on. I'm going to dance. Like I had all of my tools. Yeah. It was almost like when there's a house renovation and you've got like all of the craftsmen in the house and all of the toolkits around. It was like that's kind of what my house metaphorically looked like. There were just toolkits everywhere, and I was just like, I had all of my tools out, my tarot, my journal, my music, my hammock, like everything was available, and I was just grabbing for stuff. Yeah. Because that's what was going to get me through, because I was changing everything. This was how I'd been my whole life, just performing and living up to expectations and hustling and, being afraid that if I wasn't making a significant amount of money, my parents would be really disappointed. So there was so much of that ingrained, but I was absolutely determined to find a new way through, because I just didn't want to live like that anymore.
Yeah. Love a good metaphor with the house. I'm like, oh yeah, can see the toolbox here and there. So fun to add that, and I think what you're describing you know, it reminds me of a detox process. I know getting off sugar, getting off other things,
Yeah.
really. And I remember we talked about that. It was like detoxing yourself, which is, it's no small thing, because those grooves in your brain, the patterns, they're so, and you know this, they're set to, and then you had a question, you know, is this real? Is this going to change? And so having your tools, having that house metaphor with all your different toolboxes, it really, what I saw is you were committed to the greater why and reason, more so than staying in this loop of feeling like you're always kind of in that, you know, race, in that track of running around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. Love me some good metaphors, Gabriela. I love it. I love the toolboxes. Well, and so as you started to shift this way of being, and I, you know, really had the privilege of watching it, and it was so beautiful. And actually, as you just took this deep breath, I was like, that's what it felt like. You were like slowly taking more and more air and oxygen in, deep breaths. You know, maybe just to share with everyone for a moment how your soul, once you started to be able to really hear it more, what did you notice? Where was she guiding you, and what has kind of opened up since?
So two quite significant moments of guidance came in quite early on. One of them was in one of our sessions, and one of them was actually a podcast episode of yours that I watched. So what came in one of our sessions was an image of me, and this might have been maybe the second session we had, so this is over a year ago now, but it was an image of me standing on a leaf, and I just got a sense that there was a really magical connection in that juxtaposition. Like there was something about the proximity of me to a leaf. So it felt magical, but it also just felt like real calm comfort, that place of home. And that got me really curious about, you know, what is this thing about nature that's calling me? What is this thing about nature that feels good? Like it was more than just, oh, you know, get outside and get some fresh air. Like that's really good for you. Like it was more than that, like it really felt like a communication. And again, like, you know, I was sitting there going, what the hell is this? Nature's communicating with me. I mean, yes, I've done my shamanic training, but there's always been a difficulty with me to really believe that I have a spiritual gift. And that's to do with my upbringing. It's been a very scientific upbringing. So I was a bit like, sure, I've done my shamanic training, but really, is there some kind of communication coming through? And then it just so happened, you know, the teacher always turns up at the right moment, doesn't it? So then I was watching a podcast, and it was Ainsley, what's his second?
McLeod,
that's it. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the one of the moments in the podcast, he talked about going out and talking to your spirit guides. And he said, you know, talk out loud because they're not mind readers. And there was something about the way he said that made me think, oh my God, this is available to all of us. Like he's being so pragmatic. Yeah. It just really, it was the right message at the right time. And he said, go out into nature and ask, who am I and what is my purpose? And I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'll ask it out loud. So I went on a walk near here where I live, and I got to the top of the hill, and I asked, what is my purpose? I think I asked that one first because I was scared about who am I? I was like, oh, like, what if I don't get an answer? It felt like a really big one. So I was like, let's just ease in with what's my purpose. Although someone listening might be like, well, wait, you think that one's a less scary one to ask? Right. But just the way that I was, it felt less scary to ask about my purpose than who am I? So I asked, what is my purpose? And in my mind, two words popped up as a thought, and they were creative contentment. And I think what could be really useful for someone listening, and this is a journey I've had to make myself, is like, well, how do I know I'm not thinking that? Like, how do I know that's a message rather than just a thought. And the fact was, to think those words around what is my purpose, I'd never thought those words before. I'd never really put those two words together. It just wasn't a thought that I'd had before, and it wasn't something that logically I would think of in answer to that question. Like, I genuinely was curious about what that answer might be. So I felt stronger by that. I was like, oh wow, I think I just got an answer. That's really cool. And I was excited. And then I went for it and I said, who am I? And I heard the words tree goddess. And I was just like, what the hell is that? And it was like, I would never have thought that in a million years. I didn't even know what it meant. I was certainly embarrassed. I was like, who am I? Who am I to be a tree goddess? Let alone what is that? But again, it was like that moment on the sofa. I just thought, you can't turn away from this. If you've been given a message from your guides and you've taken 40 plus years to finally speak to them, how disappointed are they going to be if you then just go, don't like that answer, and then just walk down the hill and never speak to them again? So even though I had no idea what it meant, I was like, I'm committed to exploring this. And of course, what that meant, I was like, well, tree goddess, surely the best way to explore this is to go into forests, to spend some time in forests. And so that really opened up the specificity. Like, I started to understand why nature had been calling me. It was like, oh, it's calling me to go into the forest because I'm a tree goddess. And even it felt nuts to think all of these thoughts. But there was that other one in my mind. Like, every time I looked left and thought about not following this guidance, I was like, you know where that path leads. It just leads to running a business from a very masculine energy perspective. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I was like, well, even though I don't know what this right turn into the forest means, I may as well go check it out.
What I love about this is you listening at a very deep level. First of all, having the courage to just get at the top of that mountain and ask those questions, and to watch what is unfolded. Because I remember you sharing that. The amazing thing to me, it's funny, I had this memory when we first met. I think you probably remember this. And I right away was like, you are connected to like trees. Something is going on with you and trees. And I remember being like, I don't know what is going on here, but you can see like big, huge mama tree. And you got that info, that download, that message yourself. You got that from your guides, your soul. And I think the thing that I love, and I'm hearing, Gabriela, is that you might have thought it was nuts. So if you're listening and you hear something like that, or see or feel or sense something, to not shoo it away, to not assume, oh, that doesn't make sense. Or, what is a tree? Like, what does even a tree goddess mean? And the thing is, and I've seen this, and I know you get this too, our soul, the language of our soul, of our higher self, is often going to come in images, in words, in ways that are going to be unpacked, to be explored. That's part of the journey. And to watch you and remember this, where you got that, and then what unfolded from there, it's beautiful. It's like watching, literally, if you see a spider's web at the end, but you see in the beginning, like just a little bit of, moving around, all of a sudden there's this gorgeous sparkling, luminescent web, and you followed those breadcrumbs. You decided to do that. And I think that takes incredible courage. So, all right, tree goddess decided to go into the forest. Cause I remember, I want you to be able to share, but then I remember you were like, I'm doing this. I'm like, wow. All right. That sounds like a whole new way of being. So let's talk about what happened after.
Yeah.
You got that.
So I began to understand that I wanted to make some kind of commitment or some kind of ceremony to cultivating time for myself in the forest. Like I do spend time in nature. I take a long walk every day, and I'm out in nature quite a bit. But that was different to actively going into a forest with an intention of being a tree goddess. So I thought to myself, I'm going to take some time off. I'm going to hire a van and I'm going to drive to the forest and just stay there. So the first trip I took was, it was 5 days, and it was in the New Forest. So the New Forest is a really special place near here where I live. It's some of the oldest forest nearby. It's filled with wild horses. It's just what came to me when I thought about going off somewhere to the forest. And so I took this 5 days in a van, and that's when I really began to understand this has been calling me all along. That time in the forest, I realized memories surfaced of my life as a child and how much of my childhood was spent in forests. And I started to remember myself talking to nature and feeling at home in nature. So a real sense of remembering of what these gifts were. And then those 5 days were so magical, Julie. I started to hear a very different internal dialogue in that time. Like most of my life, my internal dialogue has been glass half empty. It's been, I haven't worked enough, I haven't done enough, I'm not good enough. It's never happy. You know, I might have had a financially abundant month, but it could have been more. I might have started working with a fantastic new client, but what about the two that said no? So it had been a very negative internal voice. But as I started to spend time amongst the trees and getting weepy, I had this internal voice. It just woke up within me. And it started to look around and talk about how beautiful everything was. It started to talk about the light and the colors and the shapes and the smells and just how wonderful it was to be out in the forest. And then it started to talk about me and how brave I was to be out there. Like here I was in this van, I'd never driven a van before. I was out in the forest, things like, where am I going to go to the toilet? Like all these kind of, sort of things that would usually just give me a bit of a meltdown. And then usually the voice would be like, you've bitten off more than you can chew. But the voice in my head was saying, like there was a morning that I woke up really early and like I was desperate to go to the toilet, and I just ended up running into the forest and kind of pulling my trousers down and like taking a crap and just being like, oh God, this is just so awful. Like I don't even have any toilet paper with me. And just this voice in my head that was like, look at you, you're just getting in there, you're just doing it, you don't care, like it's so amazing. So I started to see myself in this completely different way, like with such a different lens. I was being easier on myself. And then over that 5-day period, I started to just get these showers of self-love. I'd go sit with trees and I would just get these internal energetic showers of self-love. And it's strange. It's almost hard for me to remember how little I loved myself before. It seems so long ago. It seems so strange to even try to imagine my brain in such an unloving state. But that voice and that feeling of self-love, like that was the main gift that came. But I was really, really hooked. I thought to myself, there's something really magical going on here. And I remember, I would say around day 3 or day 4, I remember suddenly thinking, holy shit, the trees are rewiring my brain. Like that came to me. I was like, if I'm thinking differently and I'm seeing differently and I'm not doing it, I thought to myself, these trees are rewiring my brain.
Oh, wow. It's so, it's amazing to me to hear when you go back and really go into this metamorphosis. And it actually, what came through to me was even the, I'm sure some listening know about forest bathing, that powerful, the science behind literally getting in forests, getting in trees, getting your feet on earth, the energy, the energetic field. And it's so beautiful, Gabriela, because I've seen this shift in you. And really, it's a journey back home to you. It's a journey back to your heart. It's a journey back to self-love. And these trees, you took the questions: who am I? What is my purpose? And you heard creative contentment and tree goddess. You followed the nudges, the inkling, okay, I'm going to explore. You did 5 days in an RV, a van in the forest, and began that process. And that has been one of the most beautiful gifts in watching you, is watching you come home to you, to feel that sense of really that new, as you said, it used to be, it's not enough, right? You could be, and on the outside, and I'll say this, it can look like all is working well, right? You're successful, your business is growing, you have books, you have accolades, you have awards. But what I'm hearing is that you felt empty. There was an emptiness, and that the trees, the forest, and you giving yourself space, grace, and time to be in that energy. I'm seeing it's like, you know me, I love metaphors. So I'm going to just bring in the metaphor, but these cars, I have a car that you plug in now, and it's like, I'm just seeing you plugged into the energetics of the forest. And that changed everything. And this is a message. This is one of the reasons why I'm in love with you and what you're doing, and what's coming through you is, I don't know anyone who doesn't want to have more peace, more self-love, more positive self, dialogue, and a feeling of oneness. And that, you could even hear it when you said, I start to hear the trees, my voice say to me, like, look at you, not look at me. I should have, it went down. It went from look at me to like, look at me, I'm doing this.
Yeah. And I think what came as a result of that was a sense that there was a consciousness in the forest. Because I think I love nature. I've always loved nature, and I've always been drawn to live in nature and spend time in nature. But I'd always seen it as a painting, something to look at and be like, oh, that's lovely. But that trip really showed me that there's an entity here, there's an energy here, and it's active. And what just came to me was it's chosen me, but also what has come as a result of that is I want to take that choosing and pass it on to other people, because I've taken clients now into the forest, and I've been able to connect them to some of the similar experiences. So it wasn't a case of like, oh, this just works for me because I'm special, I'm a tree goddess. It's like, no, I'm this conduit to pass on the healing to other people too. So after that first van trip, it made total sense that was going to be my way of living, and that I was going to find a way to buy a van, to buy some land, to buy some forest. And so and just the idea of having a house, it just didn't appeal to me anymore. Like, I thought to myself, I don't need my house anymore. So my house is gone. So I had a house in Oxford, it's gone. And now I'm in a space where I'm working with a van designer. And actually, Julie, there's a little parcel of land that's just popped up and become available in the New Forest. So I've just been waiting. I'm not sure if that's the right spot. I haven't visited it yet. It's only just popped up. But this real commitment to use this van as a way to go into the forest, and actually, like, it really ignited my desire to find some forest where I could go and be undisturbed. That was going to be my sacred spot, and to really step into much more of a shamanic practice, which is as being an earth keeper. And so I went back to the forest, and I went with a different intention the second time. The first time was just like, I'm here, like, what the hell is all of this? And the second time I went, I'd I'd experienced a very profound meditation and vision. I was doing a lot of, I have a regular meditation practice, so I was getting a lot of visions and stuff, but this one's really stayed with me because I was going to go to the forest over Christmas, and the relationship that I have with my mother, I've done a lot of healing, and it's really transitioned, but there was still some real hard sticking points with my mother. So I wanted to go away at Christmas, and I felt really guilty about leaving my mother, and I knew she'd be upset. And I knew that I still had something to do with healing my relationship with my mother. And then I was in meditation, and the forest just appeared. It was all around me, and I heard, I'm going to tear up again, I heard the words, "I'm waiting for you." And it was so lovely to hear that. And I just continued to watch. And then I saw myself being born from a tree. And it just, in that moment, again, it was like a rewiring. It was a dissolving. I completely understood that this woman who is my mother is an amazing person in my life, but she's not my true mother. And that the forest and the trees is my true mother. Like, that's where I'm from. And I think if someone had said that to me a few years ago, again, I would have felt really guilty. I would have been like, oh my God, like, that's so harsh. What are you saying? Like, your mom's not your mom. Like, of course she's your mom. But it set me free in some way. It set me free to just love this woman who is my mother as just a person, and to understand why she hasn't been able to give me any of what I need, because what I needed was this spiritual connection and this spiritual understanding, like someone to recognize that and to be like, oh, you're an empath. That's why everything hurts so much. Here's what you can do with that. Or you're a tree goddess. That's why you want to just, have leaves tangled in your hair and, lie in the forest. So it released my mother from all of my resentment. And it just gave me a sense of, I'm looking in the wrong place for this love. So then when I went back to the forest, I went with a really clear sense of like, let's talk, like, let's connect. And that's when I started to have very magical experiences. Like, I would go into the forest and I would notice particular trees calling my attention. And I would go to the tree and there would be an experience waiting for me. Sometimes it was that I would have a vision whilst sitting with the tree. Sometimes I'd have a very physical, visceral experience. Sometimes I would hear things. Sometimes it would be a combination. There was no like, okay, that's how it's going to be from now on. And the way that the trees called me was often very different. Sometimes I'd walk past a tree and I would literally feel like dropping to my knees and bursting out into tears. And I'd be like, okay, I guess there's something here. Sometimes it would simply be that the tree was moving in the wind and it caught my attention and I would just head over there. Sometimes it would be that I would hear it, like I would hear a creak or something. So I started to just really learn how trees were getting my attention, particular trees that were good for certain things. Like, there's a tree in the New Forest that is an amazing tree. It's done loads of ancestral healing work. And what's happened as a result is, and this is so incredible, Julie, my mother has started to change so dramatically. Her own spiritual gifts are waking up. And it's so incredible because I realize she wasn't able to give me what I needed because she wasn't given that recognition for her spiritual gifts. And so I'm now able to give that to her, and it just feels so incredible. Like, she's got some clairvoyance that has literally just woken up in her. She's now saying to me, I want to start holding ceremonial fire with you. I want to start doing that shamanic practice. I mean, it's unbelievable how much my mother, like, every time I come back to the forest, I'm just like, I need to just go visit my mom and see what's shifted in her. She's talking to me about things that I've had a suspicion about, but she's just never been able to articulate. So there's something, it's not just me that's being impacted. It's going right back through my lineage. And also now, because I've taken clients into the forest, I'm able to see I can, others can come and have this experience too.
you know, what you're saying, it's so, this is so big on many levels. And I want to just say, if someone's listening, they're like, well, I don't know, mine's not the four, like whatever your soul is saying is going to be like distinct and perfect for you. This is for your Youest you, for your calling. And just even when you were younger, loving to be in the forest and with trees. But something that's coming through to me as you're speaking, Gabriela, is, and I really believe this, and I've seen this, is that when we choose to follow that inner nudge, that, you know, however that shows up for you, hearing, feeling, sensing these beautiful, the ladies of the forest, the tree, these beautiful trees really healing you, speaking with you, connecting with you, it's always you know, to me, it's always for a greater good, right? It's never going to just be just for you, which is wonderful. It's the impact, it like, and we're just starting to see that impact. I know that your business has grown, the people that are coming to you, the ideas, like you're coming through it. It's like a new and higher consciousness. And what's so beautiful is the healing that can happen in our lineage, like you said, with family, with friends, without even meaning to. It's even better because you weren't trying to have your mom change. You did the inner work. And then through you shifting naturally, and this is what I've seen others around us start to shift. And what I'm hearing and getting is this is for the greatest good, for the greater good, for you individually as Gabriela, and then with those around you. And then of course it's spreading into your business and to your purpose and passion. And then to see your mom have that kind of connection, you know, I really believe we're all asking for that at some level. We're all asking for that greater connection, whether we call it a spiritual connection, connection to our soul, to our heart, to our essence, to something that feels like the light that used to be on that isn't. And like, you really are doing this and living it. And one of the reasons I'm so inspired is I just want to share with everyone, like you've made many trips now into the forest, overnight trips by yourself, you know, just these shifts are real and they're positively impacting. It's like everything you touch, the way I see it, it's like all of it is being uplifted through this new, I would say, authentic connection to yourself and to your heart. And I love watching it evolve and then hearing now that you're taking clients there. And I know there's more. I mean, there's more that you're being guided to do, and listening and following it. That's where it starts. You know, you've really been doing that. It's amazing.
Yeah. And this whole ripple effect has become so apparent. I'm seeing so much synchronicity in my life. I'm seeing my clients do better. But also what's really interesting, Julie, is there was a moment when, because one of the things that was kind of going on in the background of our work was me coming to you being like, I need to rebrand my business.
Right.
And all of that was just, all of that was taking place. And I was having all of this experience in the forest. And I was thinking, I'm going to have to come out of the spiritual closet. I'm going to have to start talking about these experiences. And I was terrified of doing this. I have a YouTube channel, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to start creating some content around being in the forest and doing this work. And I was so afraid that people would think I was a total loony. And but also what I was feeling, again, it was like I was looking at the way that I was creating my YouTube content, and I'd fallen out of love with it. I loved the idea of having a channel, but I'd fallen out of love with the way that I was creating the content. So again, it was right, it was staring right in front of me, this well, you love going to the forest and you love the experiences that you're having there, and you know that at some point you're going to want to share these experiences with people. And I was writing everything down. So a book was forming throughout this whole time, a book was being written, but I thought to myself, there's more, it's more than a book. So I went out into the forest and shot two videos of me just going out into the forest to do this work, not knowing what was going to happen, knowing that I was going to connect with a tree. I went out to do some shadow work, and I went out to seek some guidance for my goals, because sometimes it feels like I'm holding a lot of goals right now. And both experiences were really magical. It was so lovely to create content in that way. But what was amazing, Julie, is the amount of people who then reached out afterwards and started to share their experiences with trees. And I was like, here was my ego saying, everyone's going to think you're a loony, you shouldn't do this. And of course, I know enough to not listen to that voice now. But it was the opposite. Everyone was writing in, you know, me coming out of the spiritual closet and me saying, hey, look, it appears that I have a way of communicating with trees, enabled other people to then see that in themselves. And that has been such a beautiful ripple effect. It's why when you said to me, what can I ask you and what don't you want me to ask you? I was like, you ask me anything, because if that's my role, to say that which hasn't yet been spoken so that other people can then say it, I'm happy to do that. Like, I'm willing to do that. And that was another message. I took a recent trip to the forest, and the most recent message I got was, you are a witness. You have the ability to witness with your eyes and with your heart and with your total presence. Like, that is a gift that I'm giving people. And so it seems like if I'm going to witness people in their truth, then if I reveal my truth, it's going to then enable them to show me, you know, that which they may not have shown anyone else before. So these ripples they're so beautiful, and they help with the fear, because, you know, I still sit here and I go, what is this direction I'm going in? But at the same time, I have a trust, because I think to myself, there's absolutely no way I could walk away from this now. There's absolutely no way that I would stop communicating with trees. There's only one direction now. There's no turning back. And that gives me a real trust.
You know, I think that trust, that's the anchor. That's the anchor point, is that deep, deep trust. And, you know, to just kind of broaden this, because what's coming through as you're speaking also about trees is just remembering, you know, that trees, the plant kingdom, they hold a vibration when there's craziness going on in the world, right? I love humanity. I love human beings. And there's been some craziness. Maybe there always will be. I don't know. I kind of hope that at some point we all up level like the trees. However, what's so neat to me, and I think important and really relatable for all of us, is, you know, for someone listening, it may not be, well, it might be going into the forest with you, or it may be, you know, getting that walk in and connecting, just looking at that flower or that tree or plant and really tuning into the energy of stability, of growth, of giving, of receiving, of abundance. I always think about that, actually, for people, for anyone who struggles with money and abundance. I mean, look at trees. They are like standing all next to each other, super tall. No one's, you know, we started this conversation, talked about you were really struggling with comparison and competition. And I've thought this to myself. I often, when I walk, I look at trees and I think, thank you so much. Thank you, Mother Earth. Thank you, trees. Thank you for reminding me you're a clear example. There is no competition. There is no comparison, because each of them are gorgeous in their own way. I'm not like, oh, no, that tree, she's better. I'm going to only look at that one. No, I'm like, this one and that one and those flowers and that bird over there. So it's really, this is so universal. What you're talking about is tapping into this energy. I think this frequency, frankly, I think of it as that frequency of love, of peace, that high, you know, for those that have done we've talked about this, the different frequency of emotions. I believe it's David Hawkins who wrote Power versus Force and looks at the energy of love and peace, 500 hertz, versus when you're in, you know, comparison, which is more like 40. And I think what you're saying is these trees have helped you move up that scale and move into this 500, 600, I mean, really. And we are able to manifest, we're able to feel great, you know, greater in our heart. And your mom and others are getting the ripple effect, the benefit. And so just to kind of share that for a minute, because I think it's important. This is, really, whether you can get to a forest, for anyone listening or not, what Gabriela, you're sharing this to me. And that's why I know your work is so important. It's like, I feel like the trees are sending email through the airwaves. Like they're sending like airmail to you, right? They're like, please, like, spread
Yeah.
this. We're here to guide you, to lift you, to support you. And it's just been an honor to really observe this in watching this through you, what's been happening.
I love that idea about the tree sending email, because there was a sense that I got of how they do require us to go to them. In a way, the forest had found its way to me, and I was able to listen and then go to it. But there has to be some action on our part to meet the tree. It can't just simply be, oh, I'm lying here and I'm living an unconscious life, and suddenly I get an email and it's like a beautiful message. That we have to go out and meet the tree and meet that message. And in fact, Julie, that's something, like some of the clients that I've taken out there, that's been part of the teaching. It's like they don't make it easy. It's not like I've been to the forest with a question or a problem and it's like the whole thing has been resolved. What I get is a sense of what I need to do, but I have to be active in this. But yes, there's something about trees, because they've been here so long. They've been here generations, and I've started to Google like the oldest trees in the world, and I've started to make a list, because I thought to myself, there's trees that are hundreds of years old. Like, what are they going to say to me?
Gosh, so cool. So this to me, and it's going to continue. And I think we do another check-in, because I can see, and I know you have beautiful dreams that have come through you with, sharing your work through books, through more podcasts, through so many other avenues to really help others. And before we wrap, Gabrielle, I always love to ask two questions. Would be, what are you feeling now is the greater calling? And I always ask about heart flares, which you probably know. Is there something that's coming through to you? We always honor our heart and our inner wisdom. So what do you feel and sense is on the horizon for you? On the I'm just seeing like a whole horizon of trees. And any heart flare, anything that I didn't get to ask you that's just coming through you.
The horizon, it's really clear the message that I'm getting is community, and lots of signals have been coming through around that. One of the things that I changed when I was working with you was coming off Facebook. I used to have a free community on Facebook, and I just stepped away from that, because I thought to myself, I want to run a community, even if there's just one person in that community, but it's a paid community, because I thought to myself, there's just, in the way that I made that investment with you for my soul, I thought that's what I believe in now. I want someone to have made some investment to come into this space, because I really got this sense of, I don't want to share this stuff, this beautiful magic, this beautiful wisdom, and for it to not be taken, for it to not be valued. It's a little bit like when I do a shamanic healing with a client and I get a sense of something really powerful that's come in, and I really feel the need to say to them, keep this work up. What's come in energetically is such a profound gift. Don't let it go. So community, I've got the community that I'm building, but actually it's face-to-face community. So I'm seeing this, I'm buying my forest, and I really see the dream is that people will come, and they will come to that land, and I will be able to hold space for them. So there's a sense of generosity and of community that's on the horizon. And dance as well, ecstatic dance, that's really been coming a lot into my work. And in terms of the heart flare, what comes to me is to really state the power of being with this every day. So whatever the growth is, whatever the change is, whatever the journey is to find some way to tune into it every day. Because again, when we're making change in life, or we want things to be different, if we can't make that intentional connection every day, it just doesn't happen. Like I know what it's like, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I listen to people who are talking about their businesses or their experiences. And I remember that place where I'm listening with a sense of envy, like, I want that. And I've listened, and this was a huge wake up for me. I've listened to people on podcasts talking about their spiritual experience, and I've been envious. And because of that, I almost missed that I was myself having a profound spiritual experience, because I was so fixated in the, like, you've got something and I haven't. So it's to really say that the only reason I'm here having these experiences is because every day I took up my journal, I pulled a tarot, I sat on my meditation cushion, I went out into nature. There were some days I felt so lost and so afraid, and so like things would never be different. And that was the one thing I would say that got me through it, which is, no matter what, I'm making a connection every day to some aspect of my practice. So yeah, it's that, whatever it is, whether it's a 5-minute journaling practice, whether it's a 2-minute sitting outside in the garden, whether it's a 10-minute meditation, like whatever it is, but just hold on to some aspect of a practice and make it a daily thing.
Well, that is like such a powerful place I'm like, mic drop. I love it. What's so important, and I just have to say, is that it's just a little bit every day. This is not, it's the anti-hustle, Gabriela. It's the anti-hustle. Yeah. An even more affirmative way to say it. It's like graceful. It's just a little, it's sustainable. Yeah. And this is so what you've shared. I cannot thank you enough. I have been wanting to have you on here and share your story and your experience and what's coming through you. And I just got to say, it has been so incredibly profound and so amazing, for just a gift for me to watch life with a capital L literally expand through you, and to watch as you have said yes, and to tune in and to get these messages. And what I've always believed in, and I know you do as well, that power lives within us. We all have it. We all have this divine power, this inner wisdom. And I love watching where it's taking you and what's expanding. And I know as we wrap here, Gabriela's about to take her team to abroad for the next couple of weeks. I don't know that you would have done that before.
No.
And like leaving the country, they're going elsewhere to Mexico, I believe, and going to have some real time off together in community, which I know you talked about. And I just so honor you. This to me is this new way of being that I think that so many of our souls are crying for and asking for. And just, you've been such a powerful example of this. We will definitely have your website and information. Do you want to share really quick for people who are like, I want to learn more about Gabriela? And I know she has like the most beautiful accent. I can't even try to emulate if I tried. You also have such a beautiful soul and purpose. And I'm so grateful you did listen to the tree goddess and the creative contentment, because look what is unfolding now. So amazing.
Yeah. Julie, I really want to hear you try my accent.
I'll try in a moment. You give your website and where you are, and I'll think about how I can do it. Because I just had this moment of like, oh gosh, I don't know if I could do it. I'll try.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll talk about my website in an American accent.
All right, awesome.
We'll swap. I'm probably gonna blush massively.
Blushing.
Yeah. No, actually, I can't do it because it will just feel really inauthentic. So let me just share that. I suppose I feel like my purpose has always been to guide that person who has a creative impulse within them. Like I really see that in the people in my community. They've got this creative impulse, but they're not able to take action on it. So whether it's a creative impulse to write, whether it's a creative impulse to run a community or to sell books or to make a difference, I absolutely, because it's been my own journey, I absolutely know what it's like to have this real urge bubbling up within you, and nobody understands it and nobody supports it. And there's a real fear about what if it's not good enough, or what will people think? So I suppose the people who are drawn to me, or the people in my community, they write, they like to express themselves. Some of them are podcasters or voiceover actors or writers or coaches. But it's really that feeling within them of wanting to profoundly express themselves, but they're not able yet to do that. And that's my pleasure. So whether it's expressing themselves on the page because they've got a story to tell, or through video content and creating a business around that, it's literally about teaching people how to make an income from their imagination. Like that's always been what's guided me. Like it's always been such a pleasure to experience my imagination. And right from a child, I used to think, wouldn't it be great to just live off this feeling of creativity within me? And being able to figure out how to do that myself, and then being able to pass that on to other people, just feels like exactly why I'm here.
I love it. I love it. So great. We will have all of your links in the show
Thanks,
notes.
Julie.
And I will try to end with some words in your beautiful accent. Let's see if I can do it. Oh my gosh, I'm laughing so hard. I've been watching Bridgerton, which has the amazing accent. I'm like, let me channel Daphne for a second. All right, loves, this has been such a lovely interaction. I'm so grateful, Gabriela, so grateful for you being here. And I cannot wait to follow your incredible journey through the forest and the trees. May you come back soon. And I'll just end.
Oh my God, you're a legend, Julie.
This is a whole new conversation here in the USU. It's so fun. I could just keep going, but I will end with that and say it has been a total blessing to have you here today. I'm so, so honored, so thankful. Love you and love your mission, love your commitment to following your soul. And thank you for making that decision to be your Youest you.
Love you too, Julie. Thank you.
Oh, and love to everybody listening. If you want to hear more of that accent, let me know. Although I'm going to tell you right now, I think I'm going to put her to rest. So delicious. I hope this conversation inspired you, my friend, to really dig in, to listen, to trust, and to honor your soul and your Youest you.